That's how I became
this sober vet.
Yo live, yo live, yo live, wow.
Our mission is to normalize sobriety with veterans who are using and abusing substances in a harmful, self-medicating way. Welcome to this Sober Vet podcast. I'm Joe Urick. I am joined by the infamous Dr. T. And if no one told you yet today, sobriety looks good on you. What's up, Dr. T? How are you?
Outstanding. I'm doing well, Joe. How about yourself? Good to be here.
It's another day sober. Every day sober is a celebration, so I'm very happy. I actually wanted to start with a question, if you're ready.
I'm ready for it.
All right, so we're going to jump right into his Dr. T. So, question for you. What does progress look like in therapy, especially for someone who's been stuck for years?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'd say three things. They'll notice things sooner. You start catching feelings, urges, or patterns earlier than you used to. Sometimes right before you act instead of after. Okay. You're a little kinder to yourself. You're giving yourself a little more grace. There's still struggle, but you don't beat yourself up as hard or as long as you used to. Remember, recovery will also take less time. Recovering will take less time. You respond differently sometimes. Not every time, but enough that you can say, I handled that better than I used to.
Love that. Yes, that's awesome.
So those are some of the ways that you can, those are just some things. Better recovery, not fewer setbacks, right? You still struggle, but you repair faster, shorter spirals, quicker re-engagement, less self-punishment after slips. So just giving yourself more grace.
We can all do that. I challenge with that also. Yes, I think everyone out there needs to learn to give themselves grace. Definitely. Great, Dr. T. I love that. Thank you for that.
Yes.
So now we're going to jump in. Super excited about today's guest.
You bet.
We have Air Force Veteran Wes Cornett, who has 8 combat deployments as a special warfare operator. Currently, Wes splits his energy between ultramarathon running and writing. With over 3 years sober, his first novel, Tumbling Dice, is out now. I can't wait to hear all about this. Welcome to the show, Wes. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, Joe and Dr. T. I really appreciate your words, Dr. T.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could tell somebody who's been in and out of therapy for years that a lot of everything you said is true, and it takes a long time to kind of realize it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd always stress that to anybody that I talk to about therapy and those things. You got to be willing, and it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, it willing and some time, but again, be patient with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And learn to forgive yourself, which is like my biggest struggle right now.
Yes.
That's a big thing I'm going through right now is learning to try to forgive myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's dive in, Wes. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I guess I'll start from the top, how I joined. It's kind of important to note that you'll see in my life, I am a very random and impulsive person. I always kind of have been. And it's only, at points got worse, but that's kind of how I joined. I was bummed out one summer of 1995. No, 94, sorry. Summer of 1994, I just broke up with, my first real girlfriend. Lo and behold, a recruiter calls me. And he's like, hey, you want to come down to the office and talk for a few? And I said, well, sure, why not? The office shared a parking lot with a Taco Bell. I was hungry anyway. And as you know, back in the day, you could get all you wanted to eat for $5 at Taco Bell,
Yep.
if not
right.
$3.
Yep.
Nice.
So I went in there, Air Force recruiter, and, I was probably the easiest sell in history. I didn't have a lot going on for myself. So really I saw it as the only option out of, where I grew up. And so I entered delayed enlistment for a year. I was in the delayed enlistment year. I graduated in June 95. A couple weeks later, I was on my way to basic with a note from my mom because my mom had to sign my paperwork because I was 17. I turned 18 in basic, and
Wow.
yeah, from there, that's how it got started in the military.
That's very cool. And what was your job? What'd you do in the Air Force?
So in the Air Force, again, impulsive. I just wanted to leave super soon, so they told me about open general. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? And a lot of people that do that end up as cops or security forces.
Mm.
Fortunately, that didn't happen to me. I got my list in basic, and one of the things on there was weather. And
Hmm.
I've always been like a bit of a weather junkie growing up, watching, the Weather Channel as a kid, and just, you know, I don't know, learn about hurricanes, watching that stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. You know, I want to be on TV. I want to do weather. It wasn't exactly that for sure. But I graduated basic and went to weather school down in Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's a long tech school, and you basically learn how weather impacts operations, aviation operations, but all operations
Ah.
across the military spectrum, because the Army doesn't even have their own weather folks. So we kind of work with the Army a lot too. And then one day during class, I ran into a gentleman, older master sergeant. He had like all these patches on his chest, and everything. And he's like, "Hey, I noticed in PT you do quite a good job and all this stuff. And I want to show you a video." So he shows me a video of these guys. They're jumping out of planes, they're riding dirt bikes, shooting up shit, and like doing all this cool
Nice.
stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. I want to do that. So I graduated. I got sent to Fort Bragg,
Okay.
home of the
Yeah.
airborne.
Yeah. Cool.
Back in the day, I went to basic airborne school, and then I went to survival school and all that kind of stuff. And then that's just kind of where it was at the time. I was still on what you would call the conventional side. I worked for the 82nd Airborne Division,
Hmm.
and my first deployment was 97. Yeah, I'm old. I went to Bosnia.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
back in the day.
You're still
Yeah,
around my time frame, though.
yeah.
We're old
Um,
together.
Mhm.
funny story about Bosnia. It was the first time I got shot at. I was on this small remote place with the Turkish army, and there was like 5 Americans out there that were like LNOs for the Turkish army, and I was providing like weather updates, supplies, and all the other things that need to happen logistics wise.
Hmm.
And as a side job, we also had to provide personal security to this Turkish, or excuse me, he was an American officer, but he was the only American officer that spoke Turkish.
Mm.
So he was the LNO, so we had to provide personal security to him when we went out and about because he would have to go out in town and stuff. Well, one day during this, we're walking and I hear gunshot and I hear it crack, of course, and then it hits the wall right behind me. And true story, I went complete deer in the headlights and just stood there.
Uh-oh.
Lucky for me, one of the guys, he was a SF dude, Army guy. He grabs me, shoves me to the ground, and pulls me around the corner. He's like, get down and and everything.
Hmm.
So, that's kind of funny in my first story. I was, yeah, deer in the headlights look. So that's kind of fun. I mean, I was like 19 at the time, I think, maybe 20. So, yeah. So
Wow.
that
That's pretty
happened.
wild. So, how long did it take to like register? Because yeah, you're like someone's shooting at me. Like after he pulled you down, were you like, oh man, shit's getting real now? Like, is that when it kind of settled in?
Right.
Well, funny story was, even funnier part of this is it wasn't like a combatant. It turned out to be this guy. He was trying to jack a car,
Oh my gosh.
What?
in town, in this little town called Zenica in Bosnia, and he was trying to jack a car, and we wandered upon him, so he just popped a few off. So,
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
that's
yeah,
crazy.
so yeah, yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. Because the SF guys I were with, they eventually ran down and hunted him down and found him and everything. But yeah, crazy story, kind of funny,
wow.
prelude to what was to come, of course, but yeah, that was my first
Hmm.
time.
So at this point, so you're still doing the weather stuff, and then are you also the special warfare operator? Were you kind of merging the two jobs?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, like I said, I was still on the conventional side working for ACC. For those of you familiar with Air Force Command Structure, I wasn't in AFSOC yet or any of
Okay.
the other cooler organizations on the other side. But we would get farmed out to little things like this to support the Army, and that's kind of where I was. And from there, I went to Korea for a year. Um, Now, I had started drinking when I was 15 or 16. I'd always been a really prototypical binge drinker.
Mm.
20 is not enough and one is too many type. And of course, in Korea, that just went crazy because it was every night, right? I mean, I was like 19 or I was like, yeah, I turned 21 in Korea.
Oh,
To
wow.
back it
Okay.
up a little bit, alcohol got me in trouble because I got arrested for a fake ID when I was still at Fort Bragg.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
It wasn't a fake ID, it was just my friend's ID,
uh,
military ID. And Virginia Beach, I got picked up by Shore Patrol, it was a whole story. In the end, I kinda got off, I guess, more or less. They gave me a year probation, but I spent that year in Korea. And
mm.
they tried to tell me I couldn't leave the country, and my chief was like, "No, you're leaving." So, "You're going to Korea."
Right?
So I went to Korea. Of course, continued drinking, I turned 21, and then I went back to Keesler at the end of Korea, where I attended what's called forecasting school, where you learn more about how to actually forecast the weather for
Nice.
operations. And, at this point, it's a full-blown, because this is like an 8-month tech school, it's like a full-blown frat
Mm.
party every night, and
Ah.
Are you enjoying these stories of veterans totally rocking it with sobriety? Here at This Sober Vet podcast, we want to keep bringing these warriors' tales of triumphs to you. However, we need your help to make that happen. We're in need of sponsors for This Sober Vet podcast. That's right, now's the time to show your support, advertise your brand, or just make a monetary donation. It's easy. Just go to our website, www.thissobervet.com. To become a sponsor, fill out the form on our contact page. To donate, just click on Support the Mission. Let's keep shining a light for those still in the dark.
I want to back up just a little bit about the drinking thing. I guess I look at it now, when I was in high school, I wasn't like Mr. Popularity, right? I grew up kinda poor and just kinda on the outside, and I look at it now, I found, like, when I joined, I started drinking, I became everything I thought I always wanted to be, Mr. Popular, and I became this whole other person, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, I thought I was a cool guy, I was jumping out of planes, doing all this stuff, and so it became my personality. That's who I was, what I did, everybody called me, "What are we doing tonight?" Those type of things, and I just thrived on that for years.
Mhm.
But once I graduated there, I went back to Fort Bragg, and that was in 99, 2000, I think. I got married somewhere along the way to my first wife, and then, of course, 9/11 happened, and the story just goes off from there. I went, to Afghanistan my first time in 2002
Okay.
and came back from Afghanistan. I spent maybe a couple months at home, and I got shipped off to the Kuwaiti desert waiting for Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Wow.
Mhm.
Quick question. When you got deployed, did you have any issues with like detoxing or quitting drinking for that amount of time?
I did not. No, I did not.
Okay.
I know, like Dr.
Mm.
T talked about the other week or on one of your pods where, you can experience. But then again,
Yeah.
it really got me thinking about all the people, including myself, who went through a period of crud. So, you
Uh-huh.
know, like
Yeah.
maybe that was it, because everybody seemed to be like they would go through a period where they would, like a week or so, 2 weeks, they would get really sick,
Sick. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
on deployment. So maybe it was, I don't know, but I was never, it was never that big of a deal to me when I was deployed. No.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
From there, I got stationed in Germany, and then I got deployed to Africa.
What part of Germany were you at, Wes?
I was at Simbach, which is just
Okay.
outside Kaiserslautern in Ramstein.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
of course.
I was married. We had our daughter over there
Uh-huh.
in
That's cool.
2003. And again, I got sent back out the door and I went to, this was my first kind of experience working in the special operations world, truly working in the special operations world. I got sent to Africa and got to work on a lot of cool missions and do a lot of cool things over there throughout mostly the Horn of Africa, because it was still under the Operation Enduring Freedom flag, but just a
Okay.
little bit different. And then, we PCS'd again, went to Savannah, Georgia. I worked for the 160th and the Rangers at that point. So I was fully immersed into the soft world and fully doing soft deployments and even working with some of the guys we don't talk about and all that good stuff.
Now, how was that culture with drinking?
So there was a lot of drinking. And one thing I will say as a cautionary tale to anybody listening, and I wish I could tell a lot younger folks this, I still struggle with the regret daily of not fulfilling my potential because of drinking. Because when I was at home, I was more interested in partying or girls or whatever, right? Instead of applying myself to do the things I need to do to be a better operator and even ascend. Like I had a good friend who worked in one of those high tier units and he wanted to work with me to try to get me there, not saying I would, but like the opportunity to get there. But no, that's my mindset and everything was terrible. That's just not what happened. But yeah, a lot of guys were drinking, of course. There was people, of course, drinking downrange at times, or may not have been. I don't know. That's what they say.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, but we would go to, I also during that time period, our AO, our area of operations in the rear was South America.
Okay.
So this was a while ago. There was some U.S. hostages being held by these Colombia terrorists called the FARC. And we would launch down there every so often because they would pick something up on SIGINT or whatever, and we would go down there to try to find them. And we would sit in Colombia forever, how long, and do those type of missions. And then we would also do training missions with a lot of Central American forces. So we spent a lot of time like El Salvador, Honduras, Chile, and all that kind of stuff. But each time one of those, we had opportunities to go drink, and that's what people did,
How long were you in for it? Because it sounds like you traveled the world.
I did. I've been a lot of places. I was in just shy of 20 because at the time they offered like early retirement for people. I was in that bucket where I was like over 19 but under 20, and you know how numbers work in the military, they just numbers. And if I said I want to retire, they're like, okay, cool, you're retired, you're full retirement, yada yada yada, just because they need to cut
Gotcha.
numbers. So I did get out a little early, but I am retiree.
Okay, outstanding. I was wondering how your drinking was affecting the home front.
So the home front, that's a whole other ball game, to be honest. It did. I was not the best husband, 100%. I did much better as a father, I think. At least that's what my daughter tells me. But yeah, on the home front, and then you layer in all the things that were happening downrange and the stress of always being gone. And like, you know, she has to parent solo because until 2005-ish, 6-ish, she was active duty as well.
Gotcha. Dual
Oh,
military.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
that, you know, and then so there was a lot of different dynamics going on there. And to be honest, looking way back, I was not mature enough to be married or way too young and just, yeah. So it did
Gotcha.
affect a lot of things.
That's definitely understandable. Now, did you get in any trouble professionally?
So my first couple years in, I got in trouble all the time. I just didn't get it, I didn't know anything about the military. I just didn't get it. I got in trouble for like everything you imagine, room inspection, showing up on time. And then the big one was the fake ID thing because they put me in cell. My commander had to call and get me released and yada, yada, yada. So that was kind of the biggest one I got into trouble for at the time. And what's funny, I went to Korea after that, and that's kind of where I turned like the corner on being a duffel bag to being like a great airman, going on to win like senior NCO of the year and all these other cool things,
Okay.
right? Because I met somebody. She was a drinker too, but she was like a little bit older than me. She was a staff at the time. I think I was A1C. And, you know, I finally found like a mentor who
Okay.
kind of like helped me along and tried to teach me a little bit about how to be more professional at work. So, yeah, I
Nice.
balanced it for a long time. I just didn't achieve my potential.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
to be fully transparent, I got away with a lot of stuff that could have like ruined my career. And I'd been cuffed in the back of a car like 3 times for DUI alone and like got out of it and different stuff like that.
Right.
Wow. Now, do you think you got out of those things because you were in a leadership position?
Well, I don't know. I think it was simply because of my job, because it didn't even make it back. The cops let me go.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Wow.
like one, I'm sitting in the back of the police car, I'd blown over. I actually wasn't supposed to be driving that night. Not saying I never drank and drove on purpose, because I did. But that night I wasn't supposed to be, but I did because, you know, my buddy who was supposed to drive back hooked up with a girl. We all been there. And I had to drive home. It was about 45 minutes away, and I got stopped about maybe 5 minutes from my house tops. And at the time, it was funny because I had these crazy thoughts going in the back of my head, and I'm like, "Dude, if they got me earlier, I wonder what I'd blown then." And, so the guy cuts me, puts me in the back of the car, I blew over, and he's like, "Well, what would happen to your career?" And I was like, "Well, it'd pretty much be done, you know?" And he's like, "Okay, I'll tell you what. You go sit and park in that Burger King parking lot for, I think, 30 minutes," he told me, "and then you go on about your way, and whatever happens is on you." Okay?
Okay.
So
Wow.
that's what I did, and my buddies, of course, are like, "Come on, man, let's go. He ain't gonna check," and I'm just so scared to death. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever drove back by or anything. I'm just so scared to death. I'm like, "Hell no, we are sitting here." Um, yeah, and that was the last time actually I drank more than a beer and ever drove, so
Wow.
Gotcha.
Okay.
finally
Scared
learned
you
my
straight.
lesson. It took a while.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Finally, because like I said, I'd been picked up 2 other times, and
Hmm.
yeah,
So what was
but
the moment you realized that alcohol was a problem?
Are we asking when did I realize it's a problem, or when did I decide to do something about
That
it?
part. That part. When did you decide to do something about it? Yeah.
I didn't decide to do anything about it till 2022, I think,
Okay.
21 maybe, because I
Uh-huh.
am now 3.5 years sober.
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Um, I went through a lot of different things. Separated with my ex-wife. I hiked the Appalachian Trail.
Okay.
I met my now wife, and
Mhm.
I saw, like you mentioned before, patterns, right? I saw
Yeah.
patterns starting to repeat themselves in my previous relationships and how I used to be.
Mhm.
And I just decided I didn't, enough was enough.
Okay.
Enough was enough. I knew I couldn't do the 1 or 2 drinks, right? I tried
Yeah.
that. 1, I didn't enjoy it because it just made me feel tired or whatever. And like I
Mhm.
said, I'm one of those people, 1 is too many and 20 is not enough.
It's not
So,
enough. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
but that was the moment I actually quit. I went through a period where I stopped a little bit because I entered therapy
Mhm.
and I went through a lot of stuff. If you back up a little bit, in 2015, I lost my best friend to suicide.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry. That
sorry
And
to hear
sucks.
that.
yeah,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he had committed suicide 1 year to the day of his retirement.
Mm.
Mm.
Um,
Damn.
and yeah, because it was, you know, my best friend, teammate, um, everything.
Yeah.
And his was alcohol related as well.
Okay.
Um, so I went through a really low period there
Mhm.
for the next about 6 months. I wasn't actively trying to commit suicide, but I didn't care anymore
Yeah.
type deal.
Mhm.
Right.
Because I was drinking a lot. I was taking, um, muscle relaxers, painkillers, and I didn't, like I said, I wasn't trying to, excuse me. I was, in this space where like I just didn't care anymore.
Attention veteran entrepreneurs, we've got a special announcement just for you. Marathon Business Advisory Services is proud to present a unique opportunity, a J-Dog franchise, veteran-owned and ready for its next chapter. Whether you're looking to own your first business or grow through acquisition, this could be the perfect fit. And the best part, it's completely confidential, with no cost and no obligation to explore the opportunity. Just reach out to Jay Calandra at j.calandra@marathonbas.com to learn more. Support veteran success. Build your future. Let Marathon guide the way.
If I back up a little more, I think it's kind of important to bring up too. I had 2 periods of an opiate type problem too.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And usually layered with the drinking, of course. But back in 2001, I broke my collarbone. Early 2001, I broke my collarbone. And this is back in the day when they handed out Oxycontin like it was candy.
Yep.
Right.
And I just kept going back. Nobody ever even questioned it, and
Oh, wow.
I went back for an appointment one day, and doctor asked, he's like, oh, okay, we talk about it and everything. He's like, do you need some more pills? And finally I said, no, I can't, no, just even if no, because I realized what was going on. It'd been a while. And they just kept giving them at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I got away with it that time. And then in 2008, I was on a mission in El Salvador, and I fell off an elevated walkway, and I face planted on another piece of it, concrete. Like, what's that movie? Basically, that's what happened. Yeah.
Ooh.
And I knocked out all my teeth. I do wear partial now, and I cut my lip and everything. And
oh, man.
let me tell you a funny story. Don't ever go to an emergency room in San Salvador. That's not the place you want to be. Literally, a dog and cat walked into the waiting room. It was just wild. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
But at the time we were in field conditions, so we went back. I think we were staying in a hangar, and we had cots, so it was very uncomfortable. And I was, dealing with a lot in our doc, because I was with the SF team, and our doc gave me a fentanyl lollipop. And for those unfamiliar, that's what they will give somebody if they're shot down range or something. It's just like a stick, literally a stick of fentanyl, and you just suck on it. A lot of times they'll tie a string around your wrist while you're sitting there with it. So if you gnaw it out, it'll pull out. But that's where that started.
Now, what did that make you feel like compared to drinking? What was the effect?
The effect was more euphoric, I guess. Yeah, more euphoric.
Okay. Gotcha.
I also will offer this as a warning because I've done it before. For anybody who wants to try opiates and alcohol, do so at your very own risk. A couple times I thought I was literally going to die. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of went through it again with the opiates, with all the surgery and everything. And it was just, yeah. But again, I got away from them. But then I had a friend, he broke his leg and he got a bunch. And so, yeah.
Gotcha. So did you stop cold turkey, Wes?
Drinking? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I sure did.
Wow.
I sure did. It wasn't too hard for me to quit. I never really had a problem just quitting. I remember it was like July 4th was like my last drink one evening, and and I decided it was done.
Wow.
I mean, it's
Good for
definitely
you.
tough. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Right? We all deal with a lot of things going through that, and we all deal with like really wanting to drink again.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
never relapsed or really had a big situation where I almost relapsed, right? I mean, I
Gotcha.
had to learn to live again. I think one of your guests, I think he was Air Force as well, mentioned I go to a lot of concerts and shows and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Jimmy.
used to be every time I went to a show or a concert, it was a blackout experience.
Right.
Like,
Wow.
I've seen hundreds of bands, but half of them I couldn't tell you crap about what happened in the show. But
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
so my first concert I went to, that was really, really hard. Just because I didn't know what to do with my hands, literally and figuratively, right? Because I'm
Right.
not holding nothing, and it's just like, what do I do? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I experienced that again. I went to Oklahoma University game. I live here in Norman, and same thing. Sporting events. I love sporting events. Same thing. Those used to be like damn near blackout events most of the time, right? And
Mhm.
same thing, just kind of learning how to do these things again. And
Gotcha.
it's,
D-
that's still a struggle to me. Sometimes I think about things and I'm like, oh, we're doing like a vow renewal / marriage kind of ceremony in Vegas in a
Yeah.
couple weeks. And I'm
Nice.
just like, man, what I wouldn't give. What I wouldn't give,
Yeah.
to have like one more time in Vegas, right?
Yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it.
But
So it sounds like a lot of this is kind of like self-done. What kind of support system have you had
yeah,
or leaned on, or has this all just been Wes, just solo?
no, 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 no. No, 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 no. So going back to like the suicidal era, that was, a big part of the help there was my ex-wife,
Okay.
really kind of staying on me about, she's just like, you need to get help. You got problems, man. And
Mhm.
you really need to get help. And she kept reminding me. And then one day I called. Um, so I went. This was the first time. Well, I've been to therapy before for like couples counseling, different stuff like that. But at those
Mhm.
times, most of us know, like I wasn't there to get better, right?
Right.
you
Gotcha.
know, got
Mhm.
and that's how it was, and like coming back from deployment, same thing. Docs would ask you all these questions, and of course, at my time, I hope it's getting better in the military, but at my time, you're just like, no, it's good, it's fine, I'm all
Yep.
good, bro.
Mhm.
Yep.
Or
Right.
for us, you wouldn't get, you'd be off status and couldn't go again,
Mhm.
but you're like, no, I'm good, don't worry about it. Got anything you want to talk
Mhm.
about? You lost like this teammate, you lost your friend down there, and like, no, I'm good.
Yep.
Um, so I did that for years, of course. And then, yeah, so I went to therapy the first time. I did an intake. And then they're like, okay, I met with like I don't know, the PA nurse, whoever. And I
Mhm.
talked with them at behavioral health and they were like, okay, do you mind they literally wanted to walk me over to this doctor's office.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
we
Wow.
walked over to the doctor's office, talked to the doctor for a while. And I'm immediately like, getting the vibe, and of course, they were starting to say it that, and pardon my jokes, I laugh at a lot of things. I was about to be on a grippy sock vacation. Um,
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
they wanted me to go inpatient.
Yeah.
So I started backtracking a little bit,
Mhm.
got myself out of that because I didn't really feel that was necessary.
Right.
But then I did start going to counseling regularly, and then the process began, as I'm sure you know, Dr. T and others who have
Mhm.
dealt with it. It's a huge process of finding the right therapist, finding
Absolutely.
the right medications.
Absolutely.
Just so much goes into it, and
Yeah.
it's such a process. But I
Mhm.
was really first time in my life being honest in therapy, um, which is something I would tell folks too, is you got to be honest. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever seen the memes about winning therapy when your therapist looks at you weird and stuff like that. Um, I started to play that game myself a little bit just because I was telling the truth, and just some of the reactions I would get were just like, they would kind of make me laugh,
You're
and
like, mhm.
so in a way I was kind of
Mm.
having like a good time with it. But, like, for example, therapists would ask, well, how much do you drink? And I'd be like, oh, about 18 drinks. And she would say, well, in a week, that's not terrible. I was like, no, that's a night,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Right.
what?
Mhm.
They're like, there's no way. And I was like, yeah, because what I used to do at times, I would like either keep like beer caps in my pocket or straws from mixed drinks. And so I could count them up
And
the
count
next
them.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
yeah, it was really wild. And then the same thing, they would ask you, well, did you ever encounter any small arms fire? And you're like, yeah, sure. During your deployment. Well, how many days? And you're just like, just about all of them. Like, and they're like, what? And all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it did take a lot to really kind of get there. And at that time, I was sober-ish for a while. And then I slowly worked my way back to maybe even worse than before, to be honest. And one thing I will say to people as well is one thing that always kind of shocked me through the process is I always assumed I would grow out of it, right? I always assumed, but I really have no reason for believing that when I think about it now, because both my parents are alcoholics. They drink beer literally every day.
Gotcha.
And I started to realize too, before I got completely sober, was like I said before, I thrived on being the cool guy, right? But now here I
Right.
was in my early 40s, and at some point, they're no longer laughing with you, they're laughing at you, right?
Correct. Yep.
And I was starting to feel that way, and I was starting to feel about like there's a line in the song I love a lot that says, in the bars where I lived lives a guy who I would have hated when I was young, talking about himself, right? So I'd become that guy, the older guy trying to hang out and be cool with the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really starting to realize a lot of that. And of course, some of the other trends of things that have happened previous in my life, and I had to break the cycle.
Good
That's
for
good, man.
you,
Good for
Wes.
you. Yeah, very proud of you.
Um,
So I have a question too. How would you say your relationships are now that you're sober compared to when you were actively drinking? What would you say the main difference is?
you can't even compare them, right? You can't even compare them. And I forgot on the supportive part, my partner, Lise, she has been extremely supportive through everything I've gone through
Awesome.
over the past few years with therapy and sobriety. And now she stopped drinking, and
Oh,
that's very
good.
important. But my relationship with her would have been very poor. It wouldn't have existed because I saw the same patterns that really kind of destroyed my
The
previous
f-
relationship,
yeah.
Right.
and stuff like that. And then I think about now when I was talking about forgiving yourself, right? That's been a big focus in the therapy I've attended lately.
Okay.
Is it took me a good year and a half from being sober, which is crazy, to realize what had happened in the past, if
Yep.
that makes sense. To really have
Absolutely.
clarity on who I was, like how
Yeah.
narcissistic, how terrible I was. And so looking back now, I'm like, oh man, I lost a lot of friends through the whole process of being a different person, and I had relationships, and some are still good to this day, which is great. And then, I had others that were kind of superficial just because of the drinking. And then I
Right.
had other kind of real relationships, especially with some of my, former teammates and friends I grew up with.
Yeah.
Um, I lost because of dumb stuff I would say, do, whatever the case. And so, yeah, you kind of look back at it now and you're like, man, I made a lot of mistakes. But now, yeah, the relationships now are way better. I never have had a bad relationship with my daughter, but
Okay.
of course, that's a lot better too. And
Yeah.
thankfully, she isn't much of a drinker. She's a Gen Z, and it's
Nice.
not their thing. And maybe she saw too much. I don't know. I listened to the one podcast of the gentleman who said up until one point he had never drank in front of his kids, and I was like,
Yep.
wow, that's amazing. I
That
cannot
is.
say
Yeah.
the same at all.
Me neither. Yep.
I drank a lot from my daughter, and I would be that's one thing I definitely couldn't say, and I've talked to her a little bit about it before, and she's like, "No, it was never too bad, you were just being dumb and crazy, because I don't
Yeah.
have, like, a violent or a anger bone in my body when it comes to drinking, so
Well,
that's a
that's
good
good.
thing,
That's a blessing.
but
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
very
So
selfish tendencies."
That
absolutely.
is.
Now, I have a question for you. So, over your left shoulder, I'm seeing this beautiful book in the background. Can you tell us what got you to write that book and kind of a brief
Yep.
of what it's about? Which also, it got very good recommendations on Amazon. I did see that.
Yes, I wrote Tumbling Dice. It's a novel. It is fiction. I will say, if I had it all do over again, I probably wouldn't have written it so close to home because I get questioned a lot if it's actually my story, but it's not.
Uh,
So I started writing the book in 2002. Um, in my first deployment to Afghanistan, actually. And I have the
Oh, wow.
original notebook. It's back here behind me somewhere, because back then we didn't really do it on computers and stuff. But the story became completely different than where I started it, for sure, because my life experiences became completely different. And through, 20 years, I would start and fit, stop until, like I said, I got sober. Lise encouraged me. And one day I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to finish this. We're going to finish this. We're going to have a rough draft. And that was the most fulfilling thing I think I've ever done, was the rough draft. Just
Yeah.
Nice.
because I was like, anything after that is just cool. Like, I actually have a coherent story here. Whether it's any good or not, don't care. But I finished this because I'm a kind of an ADHD person with everything else I got going on. I start a million things and don't finish them, right?
Yeah.
But I got through this story. What it does, it's not a typical war novel. Very little of it is actually spent in war. It's a story of what happens after the war.
Oh, good.
When you come
Nice.
home, reintegration, and you're dealing with things that happen downrange, and how that plays out, with in your life. And like I said, there's some biographical parts, but there's definitely stuff in the story that didn't happen to me. And I will tell people this too, because I've been asked this before. The truth is actually dirtier than what's in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I really kind of wanted to write it kind of for like a more general audience to see a little bit of a display of, how things can go and how people are affected by what happens downrange and how others around them are affected. And it's kind of fun too, because it's also set in like the 2000s and 90s.
Okay.
Right. Because, it kicks off. This was in response to this character, Alex, his first deployment to Afghanistan immediately after September 11th.
Okay.
So like Stranger Things, like we were talking about earlier, it has a lot of things that are kind of fun in it that could have only happened in that time period. Because, we didn't have cell phones, but we did, but they were very, sparse at the time and a lot of stuff
Yeah.
like
Dumb
that.
phones.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It really shows, like I said, yeah, it shows, the trajectory of what happens when you come back and things just aren't,
The
we
same.
they aren't the
Yeah.
same, and you can't adjust,
Yeah.
and then the folks that care about you can't always understand um that, and then that creates more reaction and bigger problems usually. So you hit a period where you just don't know what to do anymore, and you kind of lose yourself, and kind of, you go through the whole gamut, like we've been talking about, drinking, all these different things.
Yeah. Well, that
And
sounds
then,
very necessary. That's such a cool
yeah.
topic. It's a different approach, which I definitely respect and
Yeah.
appreciate. Now, also tell me about the ultra marathons and how you got into them.
So,
Yes.
yeah, in 2015, I went through, I was going through therapy. I gained weight and everything. I was, not doing much activity. And I'd always had the idea. I was like, oh, I want to run a marathon, And I talked to my therapist, and she's like, well, do it. So I decided. I signed up later that year in October, and I ran the Munich Marathon.
Nice.
And it was funny because my daughter, I think she was about 12 at the time, give or take. And she jumped on the course and ran the last 5K with me, which you're not supposed to do. And I look at her, like,
Wow.
as we're entering the Olympic Stadium in Munich, and I look over at her and I go, I am never effing doing this again. And bigger
Nice.
insult to injury, when you finish there in the Olympic Stadium in Munich, you have to climb out of the pit, out of the steps. It's like, the top of a stadium you have to climb out of.
Oh,
And you're like,
geez.
what
So
the?
you're just dying.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I was salty as could be. Salty as could be. And then I slowly worked my way back. And then I ran like a half marathon. I did pretty well. And I was happy and I felt good. And then I kind of discovered trail running. And the whole mindset changed between road running and trail running. Road running, it's all about time splits, all this good stuff. And
Yeah.
trail running, is a lot more laid back. And the people you
Yeah.
will find there, it's not necessarily, I mean, at the top end, of course, it is a competition. But for most folks, it's just like out here, we're out here, as my daughter would say, for the vibes,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nice.
so I just kept going further and further. And I said, well, then I wanted to do a 50K, which is, 31 miles, I think. Yeah. And
Wow.
I said, okay. So I did that.
Get
And
out. That
then,
is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
then I just kept going. I tried a 100-miler. I failed 3 times at 100 miles.
That's
Didn't
a
make
lot.
it,
Jeez.
but I did, finish 100K,
Yes.
which is like 65 miles. And then I finished like a
Wow.
50-miler. And then this time last year, I finished my first 100-miler in Florida.
Damn, good for
Whoa,
you. Wow.
outstanding.
Nice.
Yes.
29 hours. And
Crazy.
a big thing, if you're in the ultra running community, this is a huge deal, but most folks won't understand it. I actually got lucky and won a lottery, and I'm going to be running the Western States Endurance 100 in California this year, which is like
Wow.
the biggest thing in all of ultra running.
No way.
Okay,
Good for
that's
you. Very
great.
cool.
Yeah, so
Congrats.
yeah, I got really lucky and got in, and in ultra running, what's fun is you start at the same start line as like the elites or the professionals that are backed by Nike or, Salomon or
Yeah.
whoever. And it's such a crazy experience, so those folks will still be there. I mean, they're going to
Mhm.
finish way before me, of course, but,
That's all right.
so yeah, I get a chance to run like the world's oldest ultra marathon, the most popular ultra marathon
Nice.
in California. You go from like, Olympic Valley near Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, out to almost Sacramento
Wow.
That
Dude,
is
that is
awesome.
outstanding.
through the
That is
Very cool.
mountains.
awesome.
Wes, well, I've
Yes.
really enjoyed your story. Yeah, I've enjoyed your journey, dude. It's definitely
Yeah.
something to look up to. I'm so proud of your sobriety. If there's one thing that you could leave a listener
Thank
Yes.
you.
who's kind of on the fence of quitting or not, just a gem that you could kind of give to them, what would you say to that person?
I guess number one is don't waste opportunity.
Hmm.
I look back through a lot of things in my life, and I wasted opportunities that I had or could have had bigger opportunities,
Mhm.
and I blew them or didn't use them to their full potential simply because my focus was elsewhere. Or,
Mm.
and even in my training, maybe I'd completed those other 100-milers when I first started running because, I take some of my days off of training, or I was supposed to have a long run on a Sunday, but I went out on Saturday night, right? So that didn't
Right.
work out, and that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So, really kind of getting your opportunities. And I would also say to a lot of folks, I read this somewhere, Dr. T probably knows more about it, and I realized it to be true, is it really takes like a year or so before you really a year being sober before you really start to like clear out
Yes.
Uh-huh.
and
Amen.
really
Mhm.
think about like, holy crap, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the truth, Dr. T, but I read about it once and I found it to
Dude,
be
that
very
was
true
true
for
for
me. It
me.
took me almost a year and a half
100%.
A year.
before,
Yeah. Yeah.
before you get
Absolutely.
true clarity with your
Mhm.
life and what happened and relationships and really stuff like that and how you were.
Yeah, and again, that's the part where I talk about taking time, where it takes time and to really give yourself that grace. And as you're giving yourself that grace, you're able to see how you are blooming into a butterfly, so to say.
Well, I wouldn't
Absolutely.
go around
Yeah.
telling all these military guys they're going to bloom into a butterfly, but
Nice.
but sure. No, in all seriousness,
That was
I
kind
would
of funny,
I
huh?
would say, make sure it gives you the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities. And, it really is
Yeah,
nice too to go out with friends and always be able to drive yourself home, I'll be honest.
right,
Totally. Yeah. And
right.
And
remember what
just
happened.
not worry about
Yeah.
your ride or anything like that. Or if you're there, you're not stuck. Yeah.
Mm.
And just, yeah, because there was so much time I wasted. Like I was one of those people, I could not go home, right?
Mhm,
I would be
mhm.
Yep.
the absolute last person, even though nothing's happening. I'm just getting
Yeah,
Yeah.
drunker.
yeah.
Um,
Nice.
just, I
Awesome.
would say, yeah, give it a chance, and you'll find that different ways, and it'll be a
Mhm.
period of learning. But sure,
Yeah. Cool. Well, Wes, thank you again for coming on. Appreciate your rawness.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me, Joe. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. T, for the wise words,
Absolutely.
and I really appreciate you guys. Can I shout out my book one more time?
Shout it
Yeah,
out.
please do. And tell people where to find it.
Yeah, Tumbling Dice. It's on Amazon.com. You can get it in digital or paperback. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. So that's good too, because I still get royalties off of free pages read. So
Okay.
do that. Please, if you do, leave a review, like. And also, I talked to Joe about this briefly. I want to bring up my daughter and I have started a podcast called From Vinyl to Viral.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with sobriety and all this stuff. I'm completely out of your lane. It's just Gen X, Gen Z talking pop culture and how we view music differently and movies differently and that kind of stuff. You can find that Spotify, Apple. We're on Instagram. And also, can I say I'm on Instagram too, Wes_author_ultra runner. If anybody wants to keep track of running and book and all that kind of stuff. My name is Wes Cornett, and fortunately, that is how I became this sober vet.
If this story helped you, hit like, subscribe, and follow this Sober Vet podcast. Every click helps another veteran know they're not alone and that recovery is possible.